Hello, I'm Paula Danielli from Crochet Hooks You, and this is my CHY ribbed crochet hat, which I'll show you how to make today. This hat is for the average lady's head size. So the head circumference is 21 inches or 54 centimetres, but just take note that it does stretch another 1 to 2 inches or 4 centimetres when it's placed on the head. For the materials required for this hat, I'm using 2 balls of Red Heart with Love yarn in the colour of Holly Berry, and this is a medium worsted weight yarn, category 4, so you need 2 balls of that because we'll be crocheting those 2 balls together. You'll also need a size 10mm hook, your craft scissors and a yarn needle. So we're using the 2 strands together, and just leave enough of a tail because we'll be weaving those end strands in later on. So just make a slip knot. And with your 10mm hook, we're going to chain 4. So make 4 chain stitches to get started. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we're going to do a slip stitch into the first chain to form a ring. And just make sure that you get under both of those strands there. And now we have our ring to work into. Now we'll work over this yarn tail as we work around this ring. And you can hold that tail there like that. So for round 1, we'll start off with a chain 2. So 1, 2, and we'll do 13 double crochet stitches into the ring, and this does count as 1 stitch. So at the end of this round we'll have 14 stitches because we'll do the 13 double crochet into the ring, and then you add that one, that chain 2 on, which equals 14. So let's get on with our 13 double crochet stitches into the ring. There's 1. And remember, as you crochet into the ring, you're crocheting over that tail as well. And there's 2 double crochet and our chain 2. There's our 3rd double crochet. So continue right around until you've done 13 double crochet stitches, and I'll meet you at the end. So now I'm up towards the end of round 1, and we've got our chain 2 here and 13 double crochet stitches into the ring. And now we're going to join into the top of this chain 2. So if you have a look, you can pull it up and you see there's your first chain and there's the second chain stitch, and we want to put the hook up under that second chain stitch, under both loops, and we'll do a slip stitch to join this the end of this round. And that's the end of round 1. For round 2, we'll start off with a chain 2. So 2 chain stitches. 1, 2. Now we'll do 1 front post double crochet around the chain 2 under the join. So there's the join there, and you can see that there is the chain 2 underneath the join. So we want to do a front post double crochet around that chain 2 there. And that'll pop up. That's what a front post double crochet will do. It'll pop up at the front because you've crocheted at the front of the stitch. And now we'll do 1 double crochet into the next stitch. So here's our next stitch here. So we'll do 1 double crochet into that stitch under both loops on the top of that stitch. And then we'll do 1 front post double crochet around the same double crochet that we just crocheted into. So we've just done a double crochet into that double crochet, and this double crochet we'll do a front post double crochet around. That's what it looks like. So now into the next stitch here, we'll do 1 double crochet into the top loops of that stitch. And then this double crochet here where we've just made the double crochet into, we're going to do a front post double crochet around that double crochet stitch. And basically that's all we're doing for this round. So you move on to the next stitch, you do a double crochet into the top of that stitch, and then to the same stitch you do a front post double crochet. And move on to the next stitch, make a double crochet into the top loops of that stitch, and then a front post double crochet around that stitch. Now you can start to see the pattern forming now. I'm just going to get more yarn. You will notice that it's probably easier if you haven't got a tool to hold two balls of yarn at the same time. Then what I do is when I go to take out an amount of yarn, you want the same to come out of both balls at the same time. So I grab the ends like that and I pull, and I'm holding both of the ends of yarn like that, and then pull at the same time, just so you're getting an even amount of yarn from both of the balls. Then you can just place them aside. So moving on to our next stitch here, we do a double crochet into the top of that stitch, and then we do a front post double crochet around this stitch here. Then moving on to the next stitch, double crochet into the top of that stitch, and then a front post double crochet around that same stitch. And we just keep going the same right around. And my yarn is very squeaky today. To the next one. The next stitch, double crochet, and then into the same stitch we'll do a front post double crochet. Moving on to the next stitch here, double crochet, and then a front post double crochet underneath here. Next stitch. And then a front post double crochet down and around here. Next stitch, double crochet, and then we want to do a front post double crochet down here. And here we're up to our last one. See, there's the join from the previous round. So this is our last stitch here. So we do a double crochet, and we do our front post double crochet down here. So we're at towards the end of this round, and now we'll just do a slip stitch into the top of the chain 2 to join. So if you pull it up there, you can see there's the first one and there's the second chain. And remember that you want to hop under both of the strands there and both of the strands on the other side to join. Oops. And we'll just make a slip stitch now. So that's the end of round 2, and you should have 28 stitches. For round 3, we'll start off with a chain 2, so 2 chain stitches. So there's 1, 2. And then we'll be doing 1 front post double crochet around the chain 2 under the join. So if you pull your work out there, there's the join there, and there's the chain 2 underneath the join. So we'll do a front post double crochet around that chain 2. Now we'll be doing 1 front post double crochet around the next front post double crochet, which is this one here. So front post double crochet around this next front post double crochet. Now we'll do 1 double crochet between the next 2 stitches. So this stitch here and this stitch here, we're going to do a double crochet in between those 2 stitches. Now we'll do one front post double crochet around each of the next 2 stitches. So these 2 stitches here. So here's our first front post double crochet. So there's one, and then into the next one we do a second front post double crochet, then we'll be doing one double crochet between the next 2 stitches. So here's one stitch, there's the next stitch, so here we want to do a double crochet in between those 2 stitches. Now we'll be doing one front post double crochet around each of the next 2 stitches. 1, 2. So front post double crochet around the next stitch. And then a front post double crochet around the next stitch. So that's going to be our sequence right around. So we'll do a double crochet in between the next 2 stitches, and then a front post double crochet around the next 2 stitches. There's one, and then to the next stitch a front post double crochet as well. And then we start our sequence again. So in between these 2 stitches we do a double crochet, and then over the next 2 stitches we do front double crochet, front post double crochet around these next 2 stitches. There's the first one, and then into the next one, front post double crochet, okay, then starting our sequence again. So between these 2 stitches we do a double crochet stitch in between those 2 stitches, and then these next 2 stitches we do a front post double crochet around them. First one, and then the next one, a front post double crochet. Starting a sequence again in between these 2 stitches here, a double crochet stitch, into these next 2 stitches we do a front post double crochet around them. So there's the first one, and one into the next one, around the next one. Then in between these 2 stitches here, so 1, 2, we want to do a double crochet in between those stitches. And then into or around these next 2 stitches, front post double crochet. That one, and then a front post double crochet around the next one. Then we want to put a double crochet stitch in between these 2 stitches. And the reason for doing that is we're actually increasing. So whenever you're adding stitches in, extra stitches, just means you're increasing, so you're making it larger. So now we've done our double crochet in between these 2 stitches, and these 2 stitches we need to do a front post double crochet around each of them. There's that one, and then into this one, front post double crochet. So you'll probably be getting the sequence by now. So 1 double crochet in between the next 2 stitches, and then a front post double crochet into or around the next 2 stitches. Okay, so starting our sequence again, so 1 double crochet in between the next 2 stitches, and then 1 front post double crochet around the next 2 stitches. There's one. Move on to the next one. And do a front post double crochet as well. Now in between these 2 stitches here, we do a double crochet stitch. And then into these next 2 stitches we'll do front post double crochet around both of them. And that's one, into the next one, front post double crochet. Starting our sequence again, so in between these 2 stitches, 1 double crochet, and then a front post double crochet around each of the next 2 stitches. next one, front post double crochet. Starting our sequence again, and in between these two stitches we're doing one double crochet. These next two stitches, a front post double crochet around each of them. To the next one, front post double crochet. As you can see, we're getting up towards the end here. Now we'll be doing our last sequence, so one double crochet in between the next two stitches, and then a double front post double crochet around the next two stitches. Last one is there. And now we can do our slip stitch into the top of the chain 2 here. So 1, 2, and this is going to complete this round. Just making sure that you get under all of those strands. So really you should be getting under 4 strands. And then just make your slip stitch. Squeaky yarn again. So at the end of round 3, you should have 42 stitches. Now at this stage, I like to weave this yarn tail in the center here. So if you just thread your yarn through a yarn needle and just find where that is there, and then just start threading it around the center of that first round, just to pull that center tight. And you may have to jiggle your needle because it's so chunky. See, that's pulled that tight. I'm just going to pull mine tighter because I don't want that hole seen. That's just me being a little bit of a perfectionist. So wiggle, 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 wiggle it through, and pull tight. And you can keep going around. And once you've wiggled it all the way around, just turn your work like this, skip that loop there, and then take it back in the opposite direction, or the direction you came around in before, and wiggle it back. And this really secures it so that it's not going to come undone when you wash it or when you wear it. So it's pretty secure. It's not going to come out for quite a while. I'll probably overdo it a bit, but that's okay. And then you can cut that off. Alright, so once you've done that, so your centre's tight, looking all good, and then we can move on to round 4. So at this stage we've finished increasing, and round 4 will just be simply a round of front post double crochets into each stitch around. So to start round 4, we'll chain 2, so 1, 2, and we're not going to do a front post double crochet into the chain 2 below like we have in previous rounds. Now we'll just be doing front post double crochets into each stitch that we've done along here. So make sure you don't do that chain 2 there. It does look like a stitch, so don't get caught out. Make sure you get the one that's more raised up. So this one here. And you can tell there's a bit of a jumble here, and there's a nice V here. That's the first one you want to start on. So we're making a front post double crochet into that first stitch there. And then a front post double crochet into each stitch around. So at this point, with the pattern, you'll continue to just have 42 stitches. It won't change. The amount of stitches won't change anymore throughout the rest of this pattern. So that's one way of keeping a track that you're not adding in extra stitches. And generally, when you're coming around towards the end of a beanie, people like to add in an extra stitch here on the join, and but one way you can avoid that is actually just count as you go around. And remember to count this chain 2 as one stitch. So now that we've started this round 4, we can say that we've done, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then as you're doing your stitches, just keep counting. See here, I've done 6, and then as you continue around, and you get around here and you go, oh okay, I've done 42 stitches, that's enough, that's it, it's time to join. That's the best way of not adding in extra stitches and ending up with a strange out of shape hat. So you just continue on making your front post double crochet stitches into each stitch around and counting each one as you go. Or if you don't like to count, you can make a stitch and then mark it down on a piece of paper with a pen, whatever is easiest for you, just so that you get it right the first time. Or you can get stitch counters. They're pretty handy to start off with. So as you can see, I'm just continuing to make front post double crochet stitches into each stitch around. And if you're confused sometimes of, oh geez, where did I just do my last stitch, you can pull this up and you can see that's where you did your last stitch in that one there. And I usually pop my finger in here when I'm stitching along, and it's a bit of a guide of where I need to go next. I've finished that one, and then I move on and pop my finger in here, and then I go, oh okay, that's where I need to go. So that might work for you too, it's up to you. So just continue on making a front post double crochet into each of these stitches around until you get to the end here, and I'll show you what the last stitch you need to stitch into and how to join. So I'm up towards the end of round 4, and I've made my front post double crochet stitches into each stitch around, and I've also got my chain 2 there, which counts as a stitch. So at the end of this round we've got 42 stitches, so you should count that as a stitch. So the chain 2 plus 41 front post double crochet stitches equals 42 stitches. And now we're ready to join into the top of this chain 2. Now just take note of where my last stitch was made, which was into the last stitch here. Now that is a join there, and here's the chain 2. So we just want to go up under this chain 2 and make a slip stitch to finish this round 4. So for rounds 5 to 15 you'll repeat round 4, and I'll see you at the end of round 15 to show you how to finish off. I'm at the end of round 15, so now we can finish off. Although if you want to make your hat longer, you can continue on just repeating round 4 as many times as you need to. But I'm finishing off here on round 15. So just leave enough of the tail to weave in to your work, and just cut that. And finish off. Now you can thread both of your strands through a yarn needle, and we're just going to sew down here and then back up to finish off the hat. So just take your needle down through there. And once again, you might need to just give it a jiggle or wiggle to get the thickness of the yarn through. You can take it down as far as you like. Just so you know it's not going to pop out. Then just turn your hat around like that. Skip that last loop there. And then take your needle back up as far as you can go. And then you can cut that off. And I'll just show you now. That's the back of the hat there. And that's the front. Now, with that last row that you did, you'll turn that up. And that creates the brim. I'll just pull it into shape here. And that's what it looks like off the head. And I'll give you another shot what it looks like on the head. So that's what it looks like on the head, with that last row turned up as the brim for the hat. So if you'd like to share a photo of your hat or any other crochet projects, then you can take a photo and share it on the Crochet Hooks You Facebook page.